Are you a leader and you're wondering why your employees are resisting the wonderful changes that you want to implement in your organization? Do you think that the idea you have and the change that you're coming up with is so important for your organization? At the same time, your employees seem like they don't really see it the same way? In today's video, I want to talk to you about resistance to change, technostress, how the two are connected, and what you can do about it. You see, some time ago I was talking to a business process engineer who was also in charge of implementing all sorts of changes in the company. At some point he had this wonderful idea that he would like to automate a process that belonged to the HR department. He spent a lot of time on figuring out how the process should look like, who is going to use it, how is he going to implement it, and what the company, the organization, is going to gain from automating this process. He packed all these ideas in a PowerPoint. He went to HR department, he presented it, and what did the HR department employee and the employees said to him? We think that's a horrible idea. We don't like it. We're not going to implement it. Of course, if you are in a country where you cannot really command change, or if you're in a situation where you cannot command change, for example, we're not talking about a mandatory change, for example, GDPR rules, then it is a bit more difficult to command your employees to implement the changes that you would like to see in practice. I'm going to tell you at the end of the video what this business process engineer did, but before that, I want to talk to you about why resistance to change sometimes appears. You see, regardless of the change that you want to implement, research shows that about 13%, 14% of employees are going to resist it to a very high degree. We call them laggards, according to Rogers' Diffusion of Innovation. We also have a late majority, and that's about 34% of employees. So you can see 34 plus 13, we are somewhere about 47% of employees are either going to think that they have to wait and see if it's a good idea, or they're going to blatantly tell you that it's a dreadful idea. They do not want to hop on this. There is a lot of research also showing that the employees that are resisting change sometimes can be your most valuable resource. Sometimes it can be those employees that they know your business very, very well. They're actually your eyes on the floor. The people that are going to give you the 360 view that you might not have if you're a top leader and you're only seeing things from above. So what's important to do here is to actually use resistance to change as a resource instead of you yourself resisting it and see it as a critique. Yeah? A lot of leaders, they might see every single comment that they receive as a resistance to change, but that's actually not the case. There are very few people that are just gonna say absolutely no, I'm never going to get on board with this. Most employees that are resistant, they need more information, they need more convincing, and you need to listen to what their arguments are and redefine the change that you're actually implementing based on their feedback. So it's important to ask the following questions. What is your arguments against resistance, against the idea, and against the change? How could we improve it? Based on your experience, how could we make this plan much better? And what are the potential pitfalls and the downfall of these ideas? You see, your best employees are going to be the ones that can come up with maybe 10 ideas for how this can go wrong. It's important to listen to those employees because they might actually save you a lot of time and money. All right? That's one thing. Another idea and another perspective is that people who are resisting the change, or they're resisting an AI implementation or the new IT system that you might want to implement, are people that maybe are experiencing technostress. They're experiencing systems that do not function very well. They're experiencing that they have to now do double work. Okay, I've once met a business developer who was asked to, every time that he was reaching out and cold calling people, not only to update an Excel file, update their colleagues, but also update everything and all the people that they contacted in a new CRM system. So that was double, triple work for that individual. And the department was consisting of only 2 people, and they only had to report it to their top leader. So only one person to report it to. So see, something as easy and something as straightforward as just talking to each other to update each other on the progress, while they already had their own system, which was an Excel file, had to turn into a formal documentation process in a CRM system where you had to log in, you had to remember your credentials, you had to change your password from time to time, and you had to click I don't know how many times around just to fill out that the information in that system and just to document it. At the end of the day, did the company use that CRM system to automate anything? I don't think so. So they're creating double work for a person. Might seem very nice if you're a top leader because you have now a dashboard with a lot of numbers, but that might not make sense for the people that are on the floor. So documentation, excessive documentation, manual processes, double work, these are things that are going to make your best employees resist the change that you are trying to implement. On top of that, I have also worked with students that were overseeing generative AI implementation processes in big corporations. What they found out was that they were also supposed to build up the database that that generative AI tool was actually using to provide answers. So instead of only finding answers whenever they had a question, they also had to build the system. That was again extra work for your employees. For those employees, they did not receive a better contract. Their roles were not redefined to say that, hey, now you're also doing this. This is a new role that you have. And it's important to do that because it's very hard for employees to change their job identity. That requires a big shift in their psychological identity, a shift that you want to honor by providing them a formal new contract or a formal appointment that they have a new role as well. On top of that, this generative AI tool was creating a lot of invisible work. So suddenly their work was more fragmented because they had to help the LLM with all these new small pieces of information. So at the end of the day, they were slower in performing the job tasks that they were actually required to perform. That, of course, created a lot of job insecurity for them and also made them very sad about the job that they were doing, because at the end of the day, they felt like they were not performing at their best. So see, it's important to ask whenever we want to implement something, it's important to ask our employees for feedback and for what their actual practice-based experience, hands on the floor, what does that actually consist of. Additionally, another argument, another thing that we have to consider is overwhelm, change overwhelm. There is a quote from Alice in Wonderland that goes like this: here you must run as fast as possible just to keep up, and if you also want to get somewhere, you have to run double as fast, right? We are constantly bombarded with changes in our society and organizations, because even if we do not implement anything, things are constantly changing. We have new GDPR rules. In the past 2 years, we had ESG reporting, meaning sustainability numbers that we had to report, especially in Europe. We have generative AI. People want to use the newest tools to see if they can become better at their job. So see, even if you as an organization don't come up with new things to change, your employees are constantly going through changes, and at the end of the day, they might feel so completely exhausted and so completely overwhelmed with all the changes that their natural reaction would be to resist the change that you are proposing. But fear not, you can still do something about that. You can still use logic and rationale to onboard your employees and to get them to actually enjoy your idea. And how can you do that? Well, it's important to create and to build a sense of urgency. Why do we need this change? Yeah, and this idea is based on Cotter, an amazing consultant that has researched change management for many years. So first of all, you need to create a sense of urgency, a burning platform. Hey, we need to go through this change and we need to go through it together because A, B, C, rational suggestions and arguments. Second, it's important that you define those arguments from the perspective of your employees. They don't want to hear why is this change good for you as a leader or good for you as a company. That comes second to their own personal needs. This change is good because it's going to make you save up a lot of time, and if you save up a lot of time, guess what? You're going to get 1 free day a week. I'm just joking. It would be a good idea. Iceland has done it. Maybe we should consider it too. But what's in it for them? Why is it good for your employees to go through this change? Is it going to make their life easier, their day-to-day work life easier, right? And then, when we've defined this sense of urgency, we also need to build a guiding coalition. We need to get people on board. And the good news is that even though 47% of your employees, according to Rogers, might fall under the laggard or late majority, there's also a segment that is called the innovators. There's also a segment called the early majority. So that consists of the rest 53% of your employees, but particularly the innovators are those employees that we want to look at. There are very few, I think the percentage goes around 2 to 3% of your employees are going to be the innovators. It's good and it's important to identify who these innovators are and get them on board and get them to infiltrate the rest of the employees, the rest of your employees, so that they can get on board with your vision. All right? Then, of course, it's important to communicate. What is your vision for this change? What are we striving for? Where are we going? Make a plan also for how this change is going to look like in practice. And very important, says Cotter, do not declare victory too early. A lot of companies, they fail in implementing any project, any digital transformation projects, because they claim victory too early. They are not going through a post-implementation process where they have to test, they have to optimize, they have to integrate all the feedback that they are receiving. So it's important to not declare victory too fast, but at the same time, let's celebrate small wins. Hey, we have managed to onboard a new client in our new CRM system. Hooray! Employees love it when they have a sense of celebration, a sense of reward, that things are moving. Because everybody wants to go home at the end of the day feeling that they've won the day. I want to feel that, and I think you want to feel that too. But back to the business process engineer that I was telling you about in the beginning, that had this new shiny idea. He wanted to automate a new process. They wanted to automate a process for the HR department, and the HR department told him straight up to his face, "We do not like your idea. We think your idea is really bad." What he did was that he listened. He understood that, hey, our HR department does not consist of many employees. So asking them to automate this process, it's a lot of work compared to what we might gain, because it's hypothetical still, we might gain if we implement this new tool, right? So he made a business case in his mind to see what are the wins, what is the value that we're getting out of this. And you know what what conclusion he came up with at the end of the day? That the new process would not make sense. So he never implemented that process. He actually valued so much the input that he received from his colleagues in the HR department that he gave up on the project And he congratulated his colleagues for coming up with such a good feedback that now it made sense for the company to keep the process as it was. So the conclusion here for today is that not everything needs to be automated, not everything needs to be digitalized, not everything and not every single new technology we see out there makes sense for our company. We have to be very careful when we want to implement a new change, because we do not want to overwhelm our employees with too many changes. They're already overwhelmed. We want to pick that one change that actually makes sense. And as a conclusion, we also want to keep in mind that whenever we implement a new technology, that might cause technostress, and it might also cause resistance, or it will cause technostress and resistance to change, and the two might be connected. And we have to keep in mind that we want to have a long-term perspective on the implementation of the new system or the new technology, the new process, whatever you have going on, whatever change you have going on. We want to look at it from a long-term perspective, from a post-implementation perspective. And one tip, whenever you have a team that is dealing with the implementation of a new system, make sure that you keep the same employees in that team. Because what happens a lot of times is that organizations, they have an implementation team, and that implementation team dissolves as soon or very short after the system goes live. That is a mistake that a lot of companies are making, and it's costing them time, money, and talent. So thank you for today. I'm Raluca Alexandra Stana. I'm your Technostress researcher that helps you and your company thrive in a hyper-digitalized world. And I would like to think that with our videos, we are saving you time, money, and talent. Please subscribe and share.